All right, so I need you to do the Kiobuchar story now.
Yes, let's do Kiobuchar. So
Is it? I thought it was Kiobuchar.
it could be
Is it Kiobuchar?
like a shower, like taking a
Kiobuchar.
shower.
Sometimes
I
it sounds
took
like
it
you
as
say Kiobuchar.
I might be saying Kiobuchar.
Kiobuchar?
Kiobuchar. It's probably Kiobuchar. It ends with an AR.
Gets you dragged to the woodshed.
Yeah, she gets dragged to the woodshed. So this...
I've never heard that.
You never heard that expression?
Before. No.
Dragged to the
Taken
woodshed?
out to the woodshed?
So you've heard that one.
Maybe.
But not dragged to the woodshed.
Well, I kind of don't know the context for taken out to the woodshed.
It's when you're going to take somebody's head off. I gotta save my family. That type of stuff.
You're going to murder
That's
somebody?
when you get the Batman voice, yeah. Or beat the shit out of them, one or the other. In my head, the analogy is dragging the kid out by the ankles. The kid's kicking and screaming, and you're dragging him out to the woodshed to beat the shit out of him because you don't want your wife and the other kids to say anything about it. That's the analogy in my head. Or, dragging the dog out to put a bullet in it because it's for whatever reason. Yeah. But all I'm saying is, whatever analogy you want to make, put your analogy there about something bad that's going to happen is somebody being dragged to that bad end. That bad end is the woodshed. Drag, kicking and screaming, and they don't want to go to the woodshed because they're kicking and screaming to the woodshed.
Okay.
When Jeremy Corbyn got dragged to the woodshed from an election.
Somebody said he thought it was beating in the outhouse.
Now I've never heard beating in the outhouse.
Kiobuchar.
Kiobuchar. All right. Here's Kiobuchar. So Kiobuchar was involved.
It's your slang. It's your slang twang.
I have my accent.
You say go ahead.
Kiobuchar. So Kiobuchar has been bragging about a case that she was involved in where she put a child, in prison. Now, supposedly they thought this child killed somebody. Weak case from get-go. You had people who said, well, that wasn't him. You had bribes that were given to people who were jailhouse informants, and you had bribes that apparently were given to witnesses. This is the case Kiobuchar was bragging about. And new questions have been raised as people are thinking, this wasn't the guy. You got the wrong person in prison for this particular case. You put a child in prison wrongly. A certain degree of prosecutorial overreach. And Kiobuchar was bragging about that child, potentially innocent, being in prison. She goes on to Chris Wallace. None of the other Democratic candidates will bring that up. Tulsi might have brought that up, but Tulsi wasn't allowed on the debate stage because Tom Perez thought he was going to use a rule set to eliminate all of these other people from the debate, but now allows Bloomberg in. But nevertheless, I'm not bitter about that. Kiobuchar, nobody asked her about that. Chris Wallace is asking her about that. Fox News, Chris Wallace is holding Kiobuchar accountable.
Let's see. Somebody say
prosecutor for Hennepin County in Minnesota, and your office put a 16-year-old boy in prison for life for the shooting of a young girl. You've campaigned on how this shows that you were tough on crime. But just in the last few days, I want to put this up on the screen, a year-long Associated Press investigation has raised new questions about whether that young man was wrongfully convicted. They found police offered cash to potential witnesses and relied on testimony from jailhouse informants who got reduced sentences. Senator, did you know, when you were the prosecutor, did you know about any of that? And should this man's case be reopened?
Justice must be done, Chris. And just to put it in some context, this was an 11-year-old girl named Taisha Edwards. She was...
Stop. Just stop. That doesn't matter. I don't mean to be callous. That doesn't matter. Everything that you're saying here, the age of the girl, the name of the girl, she could have been the sweetest thing on earth. Pumpkin pie. She could have had, I don't know, braids in her hair with, butter cups or something. All I'm saying is, whatever picture, the most beautiful
it doesn't matter.
Scene, doesn't matter. What we're talking about here is this person innocent? The only thing that matters in this conversation is whether or not you put an innocent person in prison. Because if you did, that is a horrible, horrible thing. It's horrible on two accounts. A, you jumped the gun, meaning a certain prosecutorial overreach to get that child put in prison. B, it also means that you've put somebody in a cage for something they did not do, which is...
And they were 16.
And they were 16 when it took place. Yeah, that's Like, think about that. You're being dragged and put into a fucking cage for something you didn't do and called effectively a murderer. And 3, the murderer is still out there. All 3 of those things are horrible. They're horrible. And so, regardless of what you're saying about this particular child, who I'm pretty sure was pleasant.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Did he kill that child or not?
Did he kill her or not? And if you knew that these people were taking bribes, if you knew that they were using jailhouse informants and getting, some out the deal, if you knew that there were people coming saying it wasn't him, then yeah, that's on you. You need to answer for that.
Yeah. So
we hit Kamala Harris, when she was laughing at pot smokers being put in prison.
Yeah.
This is fucking horrible. Kamala Harris left a man in prison on death row when the judge told her to take him out. This is horrible. She has effectively put a child in prison on weak evidence, and now she's being asked, do you think that's wrong, and do you think this case should be brought back? And instead of answering that question, she goes into talking about
the victim.
The victim.
That has nothing to do with the answer.
Here's the catch, Kiobuchar. You know who's also a victim? The guy you put in prison, especially if that guy is innocent.
She was doing her homework at her kitchen table, and a bullet went through the wall, and she died. And it was a tragic case. It was a big deal within the African American community. And our focus was on bringing the people to justice and doing justice for her family. So what happened was 3 people were convicted, if I could just finish.
But Senator,
and now
we know, let me just say, we know it was a bad case. The question is whether this young man did it, and this AP investigation indicates that other people who were there said he didn't do it, and that some of the witnesses that were relied on were very questionable. You were the head prosecutor. Did you know? And if you didn't, shouldn't you have known?
There actually were 2 trials in this case, Chris. One was after I had left the office.
But he was convicted in the case when you were the prosecutor.
I know. If I could just answer. My view as someone that has worked with the Innocence Project for years is that if there is new evidence, it must come forward. It must come forward, and it must be considered immediately by the court. The job of a prosecutor is to do justice, and that means to me, convict the guilty, protect.
You're not answering the question. What did you know and when did you know it? That's the question. What did you know and when did you know it?
Was he wrongly convicted? Should it be revisited?
And not just that. Did you know that they were giving witnesses money? Did you know that people said that the guy didn't do it who were actually there? Did you know that jailhouse informants were getting paid off through shortened sentences to give testimony? What did you know? And when did you know it? She hasn't answered that.
No.
I want to hear that answer. I mean, because if Kiobuchar says, yes, I knew all of that was taking place, I was the head prosecutor, my job was to try to get a conviction, and we thought this guy was it. If she says that is horrendous.
Her response is essentially, this was really, really bad, and we needed to do something.
They had to do something. Somebody had to
put
pay.
Somebody in jail to appease the victim's family.
And making, and it misses the point that, look, I know sometimes people, we complain about our justice system in a way, like the way we do trials and everything else. And sometimes there may be criminals, horrible, horrible fucking people who get a lawyer that puts up an amazing case. And everybody in the country may say, that motherfucker is guilty. And yet, having his day in court with that adversarial process, he may come out and he may walk. That happens. That's true. But think about the process of you being in court and you didn't do something, and they're accusing you of something that you didn't do, and you're like, how do I get across to these people that I had nothing to do? You can't get it across.
At 16.
At 16, it has nothing to do, per se. Like, I in my head, anybody could get hit with that. This guy did this. The cops proclaim this guy did it. And oftentimes, the moment that the cops take somebody out, people assume that, well, there had to be someone on the guy for the cops to be around the guy.
Yeah.
And you should have a representation that is verbose, because there will be occasions where they get the wrong person, and the notion of an innocent person being in jail is it's unthinkable to me. I don't want somebody to be dehumanized in that particular way. And so, yeah, I want an adversarial process. I want that person to get a fair shot to clear his name, knowing that there will be some, every so often, that walk. By the same token, there will be a lot more less innocent people in the prison system.
Does she answer it? Is that the end of the
No,
clip?
let's keep going. Let's see if she answers it. Because up to this point, she has dodged that completely.
The innocent.
And not well.
Do your job without fear
But
of favor.
Senator, you're not
And that's
answering
what
my
I've asked
question.
to happen
Senator,
here.
you're not answering
Yeah.
my question.
Okay,
Did you
okay.
know about the fact that there was this questionable evidence that the police were coming up with?
I didn't know about this new evidence. No, I didn't know about this new evidence until I saw this report. I couldn't have. I haven't been in the office for 12 years.
But I was wondering, when you were in the office, did you know about this questionable evidence? The reason I'm asking you is, as I'm sure you well know now, there are a number of African-American groups in Minnesota who are calling for you to suspend your campaign until this is cleared up. And according to national polls, you're below 1% in African-American support. You're not going to win the Democratic nomination if you have such little support from the minority community.
Well, I think what you've seen all across the country is that when people get to know me, I do well. And it's on me. I've got to go out there and get to know people. And in my case, let's look at Iowa. Two prominent African.
She looks awkward in this interview. This is an awkward interview. I think it's awkward because Wallace has a point. Like, I don't care Wallace is a Republican. I don't care that he's on Fox News. Wallace has a point. Nothing he said there was unfair either. Meaning, the whole point of you running for president is for people to figure out who is this quantity. And who that quantity is, in many respects, at the very least from our standpoint, because we can't peer into the individual, is a collection of things that that person has done over the course of their life. That's all we got. Now, at some point, we'll get some brain thing we can look at it on the screen and we can make our choice. But up to this point, that's all we got. If you were in a case and you put a child in prison with questionable evidence and you knew it was questionable at the time, then yeah, there's a problem with you, your judgment, and what you're willing to do in these kind of nefarious means. You put an innocent man in prison, potentially innocent man in prison. So that matters. That's actually a decent question. And at no point did she answer that particular question. Right. That question actually may be, yes, I knew that they were paying off informants. I knew they were paying off witnesses. I knew we had a questionable case at best, but I pushed through anyway. Like, and this adversely affects African Americans more. African Americans get picked up on shit like 4 times more than whites. And juries have a less... It's just the criminal justice system at its core. It's just...
Fact.
Yeah, especially the people of color. So Kiobuchar taking this position of prosecutors, you know, she was...
troubling, to say the least.
Yeah, 9, I think, for me.
Casual Thursday says his mom died, the 16-year-old that was in jail.
That's right. She didn't even let him go to the...
His mom died trying to see him, and Klobuchar, whatever,
wouldn't
let him go to her funeral. Yep. I remember seeing that part on there.
I remember that too. I mean, yeah. So...
she's disgusting.
Yeah, she was fucking disgusting. And that's fucking horrendous. And prosecutors do that shit all across the United States. What she did, that's not uncommon, unfortunately. And even when they get it wrong, they'll be like, yeah, I'm not going to reopen the case and this type of stuff. Even when evidence starts coming out, because it's a pride thing of, well, I don't want to go to sleep at night thinking I put an innocent person in prison. And then the moment that you start thinking that way, you start questioning other cases and all this other stuff. Yeah. I'm just saying, that is a horrendous fucking thing. I would imagine there's a certain pressure on the justice system to not reveal the people who they're putting in prison who are innocent, because it makes the system look dodgy. Right.
It shows how bad it is.
And the person who's a part of that process probably also has a certain amount of pressure on them to not go with this notion that they could have gotten it wrong. But they do. It's a human element thing. You put a person in a particular environment, that person acts a certain way. But from a moral standpoint, that is utterly atrocious. And I don't want you anywhere near the presidency if you're willing to do something like that. That is some cold-blooded shit to put an innocent person in prison. I mean, come on.